Dadisabas Y with Indelinde there. It's 19 minutes to 11. I'm sort of doing the maths there in my head. This is Power FM. I'm David O'Sullivan. Joining me now in the studio, talking about the Loeries. I've got the CEO of the Loeries, Andrew Human, joining us. Now, the Loeries, I was saying to Andrew, in the past, when I first had my eyes opened to the creative industry, the advertising industry, the Loeries were an award ceremony that took place every year, possibly out at Sun City, and it was just a massive jaw. And people couldn't really walk or talk for a week afterwards, but they had a thoroughly good time. Those days are over. It is now an industry all of its own, looking at creativity, innovation. In fact, it is a prestigious creative festival that takes place once a year. It's a business and industry all of its own. And it's absolutely fascinating as well as we delve into some of the issues that are part of the Loeries perspective. The Loeries Creative Week Durban takes place from the 15th to the 21st of August this year. The awards ceremony, the part that we used to remember, taking place over 2 days. Loeries.com is the website to go to. Loeries, by the way, spelled Loeries, after the bird. And Andrew Human is our guest in the studio. Welcome to you, Andrew. Are you all ready to go for the 15th of August?
Yes, well, it's actually now we're in the last stretch, so it's not long to go. So we're in full production working on that.
I'd imagine it's a well-oiled machine by now for you, is it?
I hope so.
But it has evolved so much since the days of the enormous jaw at Sun City to this kind of a whole creative week. What for you is you want to achieve in this week of Loeries?
I think the main thing, and it's amazing how it has evolved, is to look at the value of creativity. So if you're talking about advertising and you're talking about media, and we were just talking earlier about all the ads on the radio, is that the one key thing is that before you can, if you're going to create a 30-second commercial, you're buying that space.
Yeah.
So you're saying, okay, we've got 30 seconds. What you have to do is fill that 30 seconds with something. And it's the power of that idea. So how ideas drive business, drive brands. So how important it is to focus on ideas and then put value to those ideas. And funnily enough, with the growth of media opportunities, that you have so many opportunities available today of how you can communicate, what's happened is creativity has become more important. So brands have only recently been saying, hang on a second, I need to buy creativity. Whereas in the past, they said, it's no problem. I'm just buying lots of space on radio, television, and print, and I will get my audience, and I'm going to hammer them with the same thing over. I'm going to hammer them with repetition, and I know when you go home in the evening, you're going to do exactly the same. You're all going to tune into one television station, and you're going to watch what's on there, and when you get up in the morning, you're all going to put one newspaper under your arm, and you're going to read it. And that's changed completely. So now you have to behave differently and think differently to capture someone's attention.
And it happened so quickly as well, didn't it? We had this tried and tested model that worked for decades. And then with the advent of the internet, so many more delivery platforms were out there. So instead of buying a 30-second spot, and I'm always encouraging people, buy 30-second commercials on radio stations, pays my salary. But there are so many other ways now that you deliver your message through social media, for example. You want something to go viral, and whichever way you can get that message to go out, that's going to work for you, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, and the interesting thing is, it's we were talking earlier even about podcasts. So it's about how you can also get extended life. So it doesn't mean you drop it. Television is still incredibly important. Radio has still got massive listenership. But people can now choose when and what they want to listen to. So, for example, there's the Late Night Show. And the new host of that, he came
James
up with
Corden.
James Corden. He came up with a fantastic gimmick of doing these singing songs, doing karaoke in trips in cars.
That's right.
And
So
he picks up a famous star, and they sit in the car and they sing together, and it's a great idea. And you always, that's the one thing you show, is there's always something that hasn't been done. There's always a new idea, and he comes up with this idea and you say, wow, that looks so simple, but nobody's ever done it. So no TV show host ever sat in a car, brought guests in and just sang along. It's become so popular that it gets viewership throughout the day, 24 hours a day, online. So the concept of the late night show used to be that you must sit late at night and watch the show. Their viewership is no longer late at night. So they've got a young audience who are basically using podcasts and using YouTube and watching the show. And he's got an audience that is far broader than that fixed moment in time.
Yeah, well, he's on CBS, I think it is, isn't it? So he's on at midnight. His show's recorded earlier. It's not a live show. But he often is disparaging and self-deprecating about the fact that he's broadcasting to people with insomnia. But he's not. He's broadcasting to people like me who will pick it up the next morning because it's available on YouTube. The thing, though, is how do advertisers, brand strategists now say, here's a guy with a concept that will result in 100 million views in a very short space of time. How do we capitalize? How do we ensure that our brand is associated with that? Or how do we get our brand to get as many views as that? Those are some of the issues, aren't they?
So that's exactly, those are the issues. And the interesting thing is that advertising, because some people go, oh, advertising's dead. And the opposite is actually what's happening, is that advertising is everything. So advertising is every opportunity that I have to connect with you is advertising. So we actually, as the Loeries, we look at, people don't realize, we look at interior design, we look at architecture, we look at package design, we look at PR communication, at live events, at activations, because all of these, so if you look at it, so for example, if you watch a television commercial for a food chain, and you go, oh, that's a great commercial. And then you go to the food chain and you walk in the restaurant. The experience you have there is advertising. It's the brand. So if you have a negative experience, it'll actually negate the whole. There's no point in doing a great television commercial. You walk into the chain store and you go, oh, this place is appalling. It's a dirty mess. And the guy who serviced me was terrible service and I never want to come here again. Whereas you turn that around, you turn it on its head, you walk in, and someone gives you a fantastic, pleasant experience, goes beyond what you asked for and says, here, let me give you this, why don't you try that? Have you tried our dessert? And you go, wow, this place is fantastic, I'm going to come back again. So that brand experience is part of your advertising. So that's what you need to try and do, and to connect and to say, how do I immerse my brand into your lifestyle in various ways throughout the day? We're even looking now at something called service design. So it says, when I actually interact with you as a brand, how do I treat that as advertising? So one of the great examples is a customer call center. I'm sure your listeners, you could do a phone in and say, tell me about your bad call center experience.
If you went the other way and said, give me a good one, I'd be scratching my head.
It's so difficult. I'll say, who can give me a good call center experience? So the interesting thing there is a lot of companies, they don't even think of their call center as part of their brand. So they'll have a marketing department and a marketing manager, and they'll create an ad, and then somewhere in there they'll say, for call this 0800 number. That then goes off to another department who knows where, into the bowels of the organization, and it's even outsourced. So you have this outsourced team who know nothing about the company, nothing about the brand, and just put you on hold.
That's right.
And what is the value of the time that you are sitting on hold? What is the value of that brand experience to that company?
The issues that you're dealing with at Loeries throughout the creative week, to what extent are you bringing people in from other countries overseas to show what their experience is? Is there a lag between what we're doing and what the rest of the world is doing?
I wouldn't say necessarily a lag, but one of the interesting things now, first of all, the Loeries is now a regional show. So we focused on Africa and the Middle East.
Right.
But we bring in, so what we do when we judge, so during Creative Week, we judge all the work and we have juries, we put together juries of experts. And specifically, our jury presidents are not from South Africa and they're not from the region. So we bring jury presidents who are heavyweights from across the world and they all come in. So for example, this year, Susan Creedle, she's the global creative head of FCB, which is in one of the big agencies, and she's coming out from New York City. And we've got Jimmy Smith from Los Angeles, and he runs an agency called Amusement Park Entertainment. So a fantastic character and a wealth of experience. So they come out and they look at your work, so that it's important that you're not staring at your own navel and going, oh, what we're doing is so great. So you have these global leaders, they come in and they look and they go, wow, this is really great work. You know, I'm looking at work all over the world all the time. And now then they can focus on what you're doing here and saying, I think this work that's being done here, this is what really stands out and is different.
Yeah, well, that's what we certainly need, that kind of input. My real focus of that previous question was to what extent do we need still to learn from what's happening in the United States, happening in Europe, or are we up to speed with those trends, that we understand the new way of thinking and the new way to engage an audience?
Look, again, so where the world has changed, with modern technology and the internet, it's changed the way we communicate fantastically. So I remember back in the day as well, agencies used to arrange screenings at their office, and they would have an old videotape machine.
Or VHS.
A VHS, and this would be delivered once a month, and they would get the shots directory. And these guys would compile all the best ads from all over the world and put it on a tape.
Yeah.
And the tape would be delivered to the office, and the whole agency would sit together like in a theater screening, and they would put the tape in a machine and they would sit and watch global ads and go, wow, look at that, look at that. And that's the thing. So you need access to ideas. But now what is amazing is everybody, every creative working in your company can sit behind their computer, log on, go to YouTube and say best ads of the week.
I get lost there.
And directly, so you know exactly what's happening all over the world constantly. So that becomes, so your job now is to say what's happening, what's new, what are we doing, are we doing the right thing? But what's becoming interesting is the way to communicate regionally and locally. So you don't want to be doing an ad that's for people in New York City. So you want to be saying, okay, I'm sitting here in Joburg. How do I now communicate in a way that works perfectly for my audience here? And how do I understand the nuances of what's happening here, the language, the culture, and deal with current news, current affairs? So how am I culturally relevant in my communication?
How different are those nuances? If we look at something that works for a New York audience, can we take those principles and ideas and put them here in South Africa, or are fundamentals so different?
On the one hand, fundamentally everything's the same, and then there are distinct differences. So people are the same. I always say everybody wants the same thing. You take the old Shakespearean plays. There's no difference in human behavior today. So people want love, they want affection, they want acknowledgement. So whether you're a pedestrian in New York City or you're someone in Joburg, your basic desires are no different. So you have to assume that the person is not going to change dramatically. However, then how you communicate with people and how you deal with them, that's understanding the nuances. So I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, Nando's did a television commercial called The Last Dictator. I don't know if you remember.
Yes, I remember it.
A fantastic commercial where it was really, it was Robert Mugabe sitting there all on his own because all his friends, Saddam Hussein had gone, and Muammar Gaddafi had gone, and Idi Amin had gone, and he was the last man left. And it was a very poignant video. And it was loved here in South Africa, caused a lot of tension as well, caused tension with our neighbors in Zimbabwe. But it was entered at the Cannes International Festival. It got nothing. It didn't make the shortlist. So it didn't make finalist. And then it came afterwards to the Loeries and it got a Grand Prix. So that sort of showed the difference. It was completely, so for a global audience, it was, I don't understand what this is about. Whereas for a local audience, it pressed all the right buttons.
I do recall, though, some South African ads, and I'm trying to think, was it the BMW ad with the mouse on the steering wheel? That was a uniquely South African advert that translated so well and did very well at Cannes. Am I right?
Yes,
it did well at Cannes?
Yes, yes, that's right. It was TBWA who did the mouse ad, Hunt Lascaris.
Yes, John Hunt.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. So yes, that did very well. Look, we've done well, and funnily enough, in radio, we are currently really doing well. A lot of people see South Africa as doing the best radio commercials in the world. So at Cannes, we've been winning gold and Grand Prix for radio commercials for the last few years.
Okay, I'm pulling the face of I am so surprised, because I sit, having worked in radio for 30 years here in South Africa, I have to hear them in my headphones. And I get so distressed by the bad quality. But I suppose that what I'm not recognizing is that every now and again the gems are there. And when they are gems, they shine brightly.
Yeah, I think you see, that's the key thing. So if you look at the Loeries, we have about 3,000 entries. Of those, 1% get a gold Loerie.
Okay.
And that's 3,000 entries. So it's still people entering and saying, I think this is great work. So if you're looking at a pyramid, you've got your 1% there, you've got the 3,000 below it, and then you've got 100,000 other things of communication below that. So that's the problem. So our aim is to really recognize the pinnacle and ideally improve the whole. So you want to be dragging the whole thing forward and saying you shouldn't just be, no brand should be doing a bad ad, and no poor soul should be subjected to a bad ad. That's the tragedy we sit with, that people go, I've bought these 30 seconds, I'm just going to throw some junk on them, and you as the radio station must flight it because I've paid, and you as the listener must listen to it, even though all of you think it's just bad. So why are you doing it?
I really hope that people coming to the Loeries this year listen to this and understand that we can make great radio ads and not just throw junk in the middle, because it just seems to me when I listen to ad breaks on the radio, if you're the third ad of a 5-ad break, you need to actually appeal to somebody. You can't put any old schlock there. And for me as a presenter, the reason I want to drive this awareness so much more is that I know that and I'm one of those, if I'm a listener, I'm driving my car, I change the channel on my steering wheel. It's a little press of my thumb to change to the next radio station. And as soon as I hear a bad ad, I'm bored. I want to hear something else. I will move off that radio station. So it's in my interest as a presenter for every single ad that is played to be brilliant.
And the exact converse is true. If somebody does a brilliant ad, you will listen to it.
Yes.
You'll go, oh, I like this. Here's that ad. I want to listen to it again. And that, I've spoken to people, because most people go, oh, I hate ads. And you go, yeah, you hate ads. But then you go, what's your favorite ad? And then they start talking about it. Say, oh, I really like that ad with and the one woman was that ad with the elephant, and he comes and puts his trunk around the guy, and she remembers it, and she remembers who it's for, and she'll talk about it lovingly. So when people, if you say, what are your favorite ads, they will remember them. They'll stick and say, I know what it is, I know what it's about, and it builds that brand affinity. So that's the whole intention. But I mean, who are you kidding if you think you're just going to put ads on that actually are annoying people, even though you're buying the airtime and you're playing it 5 times a day? How are you getting value out of that?
Exactly. There's so much more we could talk about. Unfortunately, Andrew, our time is up. But I'd appreciate, once you've recovered from the entire Loeries Creative Week in Durban, end of August, early September, if you'd pop back into the studio, let's have a look at what was achieved. What are the new trends? What are the new dynamics? What have people learned? And what's the future of the brand industry in South Africa? I'd love to have that conversation with you.
That would be awesome. Thanks, David.
Thanks so much for your time. That's the CEO of the Loeries, Andrew Human, joining us in the studio. And if you want more information about the Loeries, go to their website, loeries.com. As I said before, Loeries as in the bird, Loeries, loeries.com. It's just past 11 o'clock.
Power News. A mediator has been dispatched to Canada, where a group of South African firefighters are protesting over pay and the youth among hundreds of supporters who've turned up for the IFP's manifesto launch in Umlazi. With the Power News at 11, I'm Pumachila Nkosi. Good morning. Minister of Environmental Affairs Edna Molewa has sent a mediator to Canada to try resolve the pay dispute with the South African firefighters. She was tasked with intervening by President Jacob Zuma. Trevor Abrahams from the organization Working on Fire has arrived in Canada and is holding high-level meetings. 301 firefighters who went to the North American country to help out put massive blazes last month have downed tools. They are demanding that they be paid the same as their Canadian counterparts. Environmental Affairs spokesperson Albi Modise says the government is hoping the firefighters will be able to remain in Canada and improve their skills.
The plan going forward is to ensure that we have an MOU between South Africa and Canada at the country level, but also at the level of implementing agency to have a strong and a very solid agreement that's going to unpack and explain what are the key areas of agreement that would have to be embedded into the MOU between the two countries and between the agencies concerned in firefighting.
Young people gathered at the King Goodwill Zwelithini Stadium believe IFP President Mangosuthu Buthelezi is still the leader to take the party forward. Hundreds are gathering at the venue in Umlazi, Durban for the political party's local government manifesto launch. The IFP has lost support over the years, some having joined the ruling party, while a major chunk joined splinter group, the National Freedom Party, in 2011. But a lot of young people have turned up today to hear what the party leader has to say. These supporters told Power News why the IFP still has their support.
IFP ngiyithandela ukuthi wonke isikhathi esiningi ngikhuluma into leyiqinisa into mangenza ukuyenza ayisho ukuthi izoyenza ngoba icela amavoti isho into nje mangenza ukuyenza manje ngenayo ukwenza leyo nto eyasho ukuthi ngeke sikwazi ukwenza lokhu nakho sizokwenza.